Hello, welcome to a Well Done Professional podcast. Well, I am very excited today about today's guest and today's topic. I have Karen Nelson. Karen is the Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator for the City of Appleton. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for being here. Very excited. So obviously, I didn't really know your story until I read some recent magazines, and I have to tell you, chemist to social scientist. You have to tell us, how did that happen? Because I was reading, I thought she was a chemist, and now she's a diversity inclusion coordinator. I mean, that's quite a spread. So tell us your story.
Thank you so much for asking, Sharon. First of all, thank you so much for having me, especially during this month of the 100th centennial of women's rights to vote. And yes, my journey follows very unusually because I am a daughter of the South, born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. And so, but I come from a very loving family, mom and dad who taught me I could be anything I wanted to be. And so I said, I want to be a scientist. And I was one of those girls who did very well in math and science. And I received a 4-year full ride scholarship to college from the National Science Foundation and received my bachelor's degree in chemistry. Started off as a bench chemist, and the world's reality of that other virus that we're also fighting right now called racism reared its ugly head and diverted me from my first love of science. And what I found out though is that by being a left-brained person who was raised during the civil rights era, like I said, loving parents who taught me to love everyone first and let them unearn your love. Never hate, but in a different way of saying, we've got to figure out another way to get to those people. And so I started my community work in nonviolent activism all the way dating back to high school. And so once I had that opposition of wanting to bring emerging market products to the company I was working for as a formulation chemist and was flatly rejected, I just took a different path, and here I am, landed in the field of diversity.
That's so
and now
amazing.
I'm a social scientist and not just a chemical scientist.
I love that story.
Mixing people up, bringing people together now.
Well, and you know, I've met you several times, and I would have never. I mean, you're brilliant, but I would have never said this person's left brain.
Right.
I mean, you're so outgoing and social, and so. You know, I guess you really are both, which is amazing. And
I'm ambidextrous that
yes,
way.
and you're a great champion for us in Appleton, so I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you're here. So, you know, we've had this discussion multiple times about, you know, in our business, we get a lot of call for diversity hiring. I mean, executive search, people need leaders that don't all think the same, that don't all look the same. I mean, we need that diversity within our organizations.
Right.
But we do have a challenge here where we live, and I think we'd be remiss for not just calling a spade a spade. So I kind of see it as two issues that we have here in Appleton. The first, obviously, is really built around the hiring piece and attracting a diverse pool of candidates to our area. And we can talk about that in a second. And then the second issue that I see is once we get them here, it's integrating them into the companies. They don't see a lot of people that look like themselves or that enjoy the things that they enjoy, whether it's social activities or the things they like to eat, the restaurants they like to go to, you know, even where to get their hair done. I mean, I remember having a candidate that said, where am I going to have my hair done? And I had to do a ton of investigating and actually ended up sending her to Green Bay so that she was able to get her hair done. So, you know, there's all those issues. So I love the fact that you're here, that we can just sort of talk candidly about those things. So let's start with the hiring piece. I mean,
Yes.
we have businesses and our community. Obviously, we know that diversity is critical for our area. What are some things that you think or that you have observed that we could do to do a better job of attracting a diverse work pool?
Yes, you have a spot on question with this one, Sharon, and let me tackle it this way. Number one, first caveat, I used to report into the HR function, so I know how HR thinks. In fact, I'm an active member of Fox Valley SHRM.
Great.
So that's the Society of Human Resource Managers. And I maintain my membership now, even though I'm no longer in the HR function. I report directly to the mayor. And I love the fact that reporting directly into the chief executive officer gives me unbridled access to that top management commitment that I've been seeking all these years in doing diversity work. So that's first and foremost. But beyond that, when it comes to hiring, and I know it was a buzz for many, many years and still is, this thing called culture fit. That's my caveat, watch out number one. Because culture fit can potentially destroy all this talking about we want diversity,
Right.
but yet we want culture fit. So what does that mean? It can be a trap, really, to stay inside that comfort zone, and it could make you very stagnated as an organization who claim to be seeking out diversity, but you fall into this trap about, oh, I'm not sure they're going to fit here. And so therefore, you end up hiring people who look, think, and act just like you. So now you've got a whole company full of all white, all male, all under 40, all white, all female, all over 30. Any combination of the three. So the environment needs to be changed. And so rather than hiring for the current fit, first of all, you need to redefine what do you want your future culture to look like, feel like, be like, and then hire into that. That is a whole game changer right there. Because I do believe that unfortunately for too many years, organizations have gotten stuck in this culture fit because it seemed like it was the right thing to do, and what they ended up with was the same 6'1", blonde hair, blue eye
Our big
person.
joke is pale, stale, and male.
I like you.
So
You get it.
I
then.
do get it. And you know, it's interesting because we do have some employers in our area that have, instead of looking just at culture fit, to your point, they look at what are the competencies we need to challenge ourselves, regardless of race, color, all of that. And they have hired some amazing, amazing talent, and their companies have grown faster than other competitors that were of similar size because they were willing to look at past just culture, but really competency. Who's coming in and what are the, I mean, different ways of thinking. And diversity, in my opinion, isn't just color or sexual orientation. It really is a diversity in thought and lifestyle and things that people bring. You know, I always say we all bring our past and we all bring our values and our families and all the things we were taught to an organization. And having people who think in different ways really challenges an organization to be better.
That is absolutely correct.
And I think that's what we need to do here.
In fact, I call it the right combination of visible and invisible diversity. And so what I mean by that is that left brain, right brain, like you said, you would never know by looking at me that I am a very left brain, very analytical, which actually gets me to a different point, I believe, of success in this diversity area where, unfortunately, I think I'll be the one to say it since it's my area of expertise, that many of my colleagues as diversity practitioners are very right-brained, which makes them very emotional. And people tune out when people start with all that, wham, 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 we don't want to hear it. But when I come to the table, I come with facts, figures, and an actual strategic plan. And because of being a left brain analytically thinking person, I believe is why I've been so successful in this area. And that's why I'm having a ball and just love it here in Appleton.
Good. So question for you, for us and for our employers that are listening to this, how would we start? What would we do to make a concentrated effort to get people excited to move to Appleton who are of diverse thought, diverse backgrounds? What can we do? Because, you know, obviously you drive up and down Appleton and we're not very diverse. So how do we get them excited about the opportunity to move their families here?
Well, diverse communities want exactly the same thing as, I should say, minority communities want the same exact thing that majority communities want. They want a safe community,
Mm-hmm.
a place where people can come and live and thrive. That's actually the City of Appleton's mission statement.
Right.
And this is the first place, the first organization I've actually worked at where I have actually memorized the organization's mission statement. Why? Because I carry it in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I live it and work it every day. It's not just a nice little placard that I used to keep, in all of my other
Mm-hmm.
previous organizations in my workspace and by my telephone and up on the dashboard. But this one is in my heart because I know that is the goal for the City of Appleton. And you've got to get beyond just words. You've got to make it where people do actually feel included. It can't just be lip service.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like the fact that you led with competency a moment ago,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the difference as to why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Because then Mayor Hannah, our 45th mayor of the city of Appleton, was the decision maker who selected me out of a pool of candidates. And he said it was not only because you are who you are, Karen, but also because you came with the competencies.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can get people to look beyond just skin color, I tell people all the time that diversity goes far beyond race and gender.
Right.
And it's these other areas of the way we think, leadership style. My daughter actually helped me to see the reality of this one: who's married and who's not married. And so then, as her friends started getting married off, and she started being invited to less and less groups, it became very obvious that is also another one of those invisible things. Are you wearing a wedding ring or not?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the little things that also help, keep us mindful that diversity has a much broader definition than just race and gender.
Right. So one of the concerns we hear, and obviously we need to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly, right?
Yes.
One of the current concerns that we hear is it's an investment, obviously, to hire. And a good hire can make a company a lot of money, and a bad hire can lose a company a lot of money. Obviously, most likely it's a relocation. So there's a pretty expensive price tag to bring diversity to our area for it not to work. So the whole inclusion piece is so, I always say it's almost more critical than just going out and finding a diverse candidate pool, but also making them feel that they're integrated in the organization, that they're welcome in the community. They can feel, and I don't even find so much it's the employee, it's their spouse that tends to struggle more because it's hard for them to connect to a group quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So what can organizations do? And I'm not talking the Kimberly Clarks because they have a program.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking our everyday core Appleton community businesses. What can they do to make people feel more included and to help them so that they want to stay and they want to have long tenure within the organization?
Another excellent question, Sharon. First of all, I have to say, put your money where your mouth is. If you want the best, you want excellence, hire the best and pay people what they're worth. That is critically important. That's how I got here. I know some people say I probably make too much, but that's another argument for another day. And the council chambers have already been filled up with a bunch of people who said, no, she's worth every dime. And so that's why I'm still here. And so I say that in jest, but also in seriousness, that it comes a time when organizations really need to put up or shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say you want the best and then hire someone half of what their market value is. I credit Tim Hanna for recognizing what my market value was and being willing to pay that and my relocation here. So we got that out of the way. I'm able to hit the ground running. When you can remove any of those obstacles so that a person can show up as their full self and hit the ground running, then they're able to be more productive and give you more of their best self, and therefore be a much better employee than you would have ever imagined. And so, why not give a diverse person that same exact leg up that you know you would give if you were looking to bring somebody here from New York, California, or Texas?
Right.
I was just down the road in Milwaukee, so I was still kind of cheap.
Well, and I do think, I mean, there's no question that we do see that, where we see that diverse candidates and, even female candidates, it's harder to keep them whole when we move them to our area, and we attribute cost of living and those sort of things. But obviously, they're proud of their career and they've been successful. So I definitely agree with that. So we get them here. We've compensated them well. They're feeling excited about the new opportunity. They walk in and they don't see a lot of themselves within. And again, typically the people that we hire are pretty self-confident and they are comfortable in their own skin. They're executives. But there's a lot of folks that don't feel included, and they feel racism, they feel sexual tension. There's all kinds of things. Females, they don't feel like they have a voice or a place at the boardroom table. What can we do as leaders to make sure that those people feel included?
Well, first of all, before that person gets here, it needs to be the entire organization's journey together. Don't just hire a person into a diversity position and think they're coming with a canned solution list for you to fix everything. Right. It needs to be a team effort, a group effort. And that's what I love being a part of the mayor's leadership team. It's not just Karen Nelson's diversity, or there's a diversity question, call Karen Nelson. Well, if somebody wants to, paint the crosswalks a certain color and some kind of a diversity messaging, I get my director, Paula Vandehey, our director of DPW involved. Why? Because all of us have our pieces to the puzzle. Our health officer, Kurt Eckerbrecht, who helped us lead the effort in declaring racism as a public crisis here in the city of Appleton. That's not a Karen Nelson initiative. That happened through my health officer. That means everybody's got to be involved. So once you do that, then the organization needs to take the time to develop relationships with other organizations that are already in those diverse communities. African Heritage Incorporated, Casa Hispana, Hmong American Partnership, just to name three. Fox Valley Indus, our Asian Indian Valley people, are just not only get to know the organizations, but get to know the people in the organization and actually develop true relationships. So when your new employee comes in, you're not just calling African Heritage, but Mayor Hanna was able to call Dr. Bola Delano Ariane because he had that relationship with her already and say, hey, this is one of your sorority sisters. She's coming up here, and the rest is history. I felt right at home. I had a built-in sisterhood just upon my arrival. That same kind of scenario should be created within every organization, and you'll have a much greater success of maintaining that employee.
And I think that's true, really, of any hire. We relocate a lot of people into Appleton just to keep, the talent pool fresh, and making people feel welcome, giving them a circle of friends, and integrating into not just the company, but having people they can go to dinner with, and making sure the spouse is introduced, whether it's male or female, are introduced to people that they have common interests. I think all of that is so important, regardless of race, or it's just anybody who's moving into the area. So I look at yours as a community-wide effort, and you were brought on board to really help this community to get really great at this. What can businesses, our community, what can we do to help you that ultimately will help our entire community?
Well, I'm here as a resource for the entire community. Of course, my first priority is internal to my City Hall colleagues and the mayor. But I am also here proudly to let your viewers know that we have a diversity resources book that was just completed as a part of the task for the diversity interns that I had. It's about a year old, so it's already a little outdated. So we're working on that in our COVID environment right now.
Mm-hmm.
But our 2019 diversity resources book is now 30 pages long.
Wow.
And it is an unknown or little known, I should say, resource that I would like to invite your viewers and your listeners to. It's available on the appleton.org website under the mayor's office and in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion under resources. And it offers a plethora of places, yes, including barbershops and beauty shops.
That's great.
More than one. Notice I'm saying plural now. More than one. People don't have to go to Green Bay. We have them right here in Appleton. And not to mention also places of worship and the diversity there, from our synagogues to mosques as well as churches.
Right. And that's fabulous. I mean, just having those resources, thank you for that piece of it, because for us, just to be able to have, I mean, we're the connector, right?
Right.
Whether it's real estate or whatever it is to connect people so that they feel comfortable and enjoy living here. Because we know once people get here, we have a terrible time. Nobody ever wants to move away from Appleton, but it's getting them here and getting them integrated that we love.
That's a whole nother story.
It
took me forever to find a house here because I told Mr. Mayor I want to live in the city of Appleton, and nobody wants to move out so I can find a house to move in.
I know. Once people move in, they love it.
Exactly.
So I have to talk to you about your leadership, because obviously you've done a great job and you've made a tremendous impact in a very short period of time. So what would you hang your hat on as maybe one of the successes that you're most proud of in your tenure since you've been in Appleton?
Well, I've just crossed over my 3-year anniversary.
Oh my gosh, it's been 3 years already? Wow, time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly, and I'm having a ball. And I would hang my hat on the creation of the Dignity and Respect campaign that we kicked off in January of 2018. I purposefully chose the day after Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday holiday that year so that we can live out the values of Dr. King throughout the year, and not just on his birthday holiday that had already been observed here in the city of Appleton for a couple of decades prior to my arrival. But I wanted to make it something that we could all live by, those 30 tips, and learn how to treat everyone with dignity and respect. And now we are into our Dignity and Respect 3.0. And even before COVID, we actually came up with naming it, or making our theme, Advancing Racial Equity, through GARE, and GARE is an acronym, the Government Alliance on Racial Equity. So we are very much on the front lines, if you will, in terms of tackling the hardest of all of the diversities, which is racial equity. And that's what I would hang my hat on.
That was wonderful. I remember when you came to the chamber board meeting to present that.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the pledge. I remember everybody
stood
up and raised their hands and took that pledge. And
it's an important piece of what we do. I mean, we really want companies to grow, and we know that diverse thinking is how companies grow.
Exactly.
The employers that we watch that do that, they grow exponentially faster. So,
absolutely.
So I have to ask you, I always ask everybody the 100-day question, what was the biggest surprise? They always ask President that. So within your role, in your 3 years, whether it's being a new Appleton resident or just the role itself, what has been the biggest surprise since you've been here?
The biggest surprise for me upon my arrival was how many support groups rang my phone off the hook, ready to just embrace me and welcome me into the community. In addition to the ones I've named previously, also there's Esther, there's Celebrate Diversity, Fox Cities. I mean, the list goes on. There's Stronger Together. There are so many organizations who have really been rolling up their sleeves for at least 2 decades, along with the original creation of my position that the mayor and the police chief first created 22 years ago this year. And so we've been at it a long time in the city of Appleton. And that's the biggest message and the biggest surprise for me is that what was formerly known as a sundown town, the city of Appleton, is now so proactive in terms of rooting out racism wherever we can find it, and being and turning the page, if you will, on what represents who we are, and that is treating everyone with dignity and respect.
You know, it's so interesting because I'm not from here. And I tell everybody it is truly the best kept secret. Because, you know, people go, why do you live in Wisconsin? Why do you live in Appleton?
Well, that's the first question.
Right? You know, and we're doing all this national stuff, and they're like, why are you in Wisconsin? And I go,
Exactly.
you just don't understand how uniquely special this community, and when I say this community, I mean all the surrounding communities as well.
Right.
This area is so uniquely special, and we take care of our own, and we help everybody. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that if I needed a hand or someone else needed a hand, we're just all there to help. Everybody just kind of jumps in, and with this COVID environment, we've watched all these not-for-profits and the people jumping in to help, and it's just been amazing, which is part of what I love about this area. So you've been on a tremendous journey.
Thank you.
From chemist to social scientist. I love that.
Thank you.
What's one thing, we have a lot of young listeners that listen to the podcast. If you could give them one piece of advice for their career, you know, you've had a big span on the different things that you've done. What would you tell them to think about moving forward in their career as they start upon their journey of who they're going to be?
Young people, you are my saving grace. You are our future. We see you, we hear you, we're listening. And proof positive of that is my newfound friends of the new Black Lives activists, that young people, I think the youngest, Cassandra's 19,
Wow.
who first created that very first demonstration in Houdini Plaza. And to say, you can do it. You are empowered to do it as peacefully as they have been adamant about maintaining that peacefulness about their approach here in the city of Appleton, compared to even other young activists in other cities who unfortunately lost control of that peaceful start. We're very pleased of the fact that our young people have been able to keep it peaceful here in Appleton. And I say thank you, Cassandra, Darren, and Ray, if you're watching. And also to be mindful that Congressman John Lewis, U.S. Congressman John Lewis, my former congressman when I was in Georgia, just passed away. And I think former Mayor Andrew Young said it best. Do you know that Congressman John Lewis started when he was 18 years old? Every time I think about how the age of Cassandra at 19, I think of John Lewis being 18 when he first met Rosa Parks and Dr. King, and was on the front lines and was the youngest speaker at the March on Washington. And he was fighting for civil rights right up to his death at age 80. Just to even think about him having a kneel in, versus a sit in on the floors of Congress. So I would say you've got the power, you've got the voice, and we're listening.
Amazing. So, final question. You have a new mayor.
Yes.
What do you foresee are things that we can look forward to in the next 3 to 5 years with the new mayor and a lot of new initiatives that you're working on? What are some things that we can look forward to or that we can help with moving forward?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. Mayor Jake Woodford is the best. He is a wonderful mayor. He is young, so my biggest mental change for me, nobody else, was going from reporting to a boomer to reporting to a millennial.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I'm so impressed with his decisiveness, his decision-making, his leadership style, his inclusivity, and his vision for the future. And so I see some great things happening, such as the diversity and inclusion Facebook page. I want people to like our Facebook page, because we will be making some grand announcements there in terms of how our community can get involved with our GARE process, our Government Alliance on Racial Equity, and our Advancing Racial Equity in the City of Appleton. And that will be under the mayor's leadership. He is actually the co-chair with me of the core team for our Government Alliance on Racial Equity in the City of Appleton.
Well, this has been amazing. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to mention?
I definitely am just so grateful to have been here and to have had this wonderful opportunity to expand the platform of sharing the good news about the City of Appleton through your listeners and through your viewers. So thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you again. And I'm excited to help and to see what happens in our community
Very
over the
good.
next. You've been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon.